All right, it's Tuesday. Well, I'm super excited to be with you guys today, and thanks for joining with us. I love the conversation about leadership and kind of boiling this down to just the three essential things. There's a tremendous amount that goes into leadership, but I think one of the most important things for any leader or any employer or any employee or anybody doing any job is to simplify your job so you can see it with like a one pager in your mind. So you're constantly like, it's not like, if you can see, like if I say think of an apple, everyone can think of an apple in their mind's eye. It's kind of like understanding what your role is of your job really quickly in a one pager, if you will, inside your mind, so that you know exactly what you be focused on each day. Before I kind of jump into this, the word leadership, man, that's like such a massive word to unpack, isn't it? I was having this conversation with a business owner who owns multiple companies this morning, and we talked about the different levels of leadership. And these three essential things can be done at any level of leadership. But understand that there's going to be different tweaks and techniques you use to deploy these things based on the level of leadership. Meaning, if you're just leading yourself, they're going to look different than leading a group of 5 people, leading a group of 10 people, or 50 or 100 or 1,000 people. And so there's different ways to distribute when we get into talking about the three essential things. But it's really about leadership is first understanding how do I need to show up? And when we think about leadership, it really has a direct reflection to how you think. And leadership is being able to bring people to a place, to a result, right? When I say place, that is meaning the result of what you or your team have decided matters most. It's about rallying that people and bringing them through to that level. And in order to do that, they have to be able to take a certain level of action to be able to get a certain level of result. But before you can take that action, you need to elevate everyone's thinking, which a lot of times through leadership, by unpacking this, you don't even realize you're creating this vortex, this opening, if you will, to allow people to follow your thinking first. That's why people are attracted to certain people. That's how you lead yourself, which we'll get into a little bit. It's about literally first opening up a line of constant growth in your leadership, which is a constant growth in your ability to think differently. It's all that it is. When you're thinking differently, you see the world differently. When you see the world differently, you have more clarity. When you have more clarity, you can bring what's in your mind to paper or form much easier. It's like when you land at an airport, if you don't have any maps or your phone is dead, you don't have to stop at a gas station every couple of miles to figure out how to get where you're going. Whereas if you have Google Maps, man, you put it on there, type in the address, and it tells you your ETA. It's all about understanding. Leadership is about understanding how you think and then increasing that level of thinking as much as you absolutely can. But today we're really going to focus on 3 essential things that I kind of look for in my communication, my conversations, my own level of journaling or my own clarity, if you will, on where and what I need to do. It's going to come down to these 3 essential things that are going to help you on your journey, regardless of where you're at. It'll constantly be doing that. So, okay. They're on the board, so I'll just share with them, and I'll kind of share a cool story with this, which is why there's a jet right there. The 3 most important things a leader can do is, number 1, cast a vision. Number 2 is provide focus, clarity, and direction for the team. And while you're doing that, if you haven't noticed, there's going to be these things called problems or challenges, or sometimes just really tough situations, i.e. you have to remove them, removing roadblocks. And it's part of being able to do all 3 of them is what will bring a team from where it is into the direction to ultimately where you want to go. And you can't skip any of them. The reason why you focus on vision first is because you're providing clarity and focus, but you're going in the wrong direction. You be doing all the right things, you're going the wrong direction. The easiest example of that is if you're looking for a sunset and you're running east, you're going to be running as fast as you can, as slow as you can in cars. You're never going to find it. So you first have to understand the vision. That's when you then provide the clarity. You have to know where you're going first. That's the key direction of this. Now, so it's just really clear that you understand that. Then also removing roadblocks, though, is you can't skip this. Sometimes you want to just ignore the roadblocks, or we don't try to spend enough time identifying what could go wrong first so that we can put parameters in place to help remove them before we even know that they're a problem. I'll kind of drill down in each one of these things, but I just want to highlight them briefly. Okay, so why is there a picture of me in a jet suit? Which I will say, this picture was taken before I flew in the jet. Well, anyways, on my future self, I had this, I had a goal to fly in a jet, and a real jet, not like a commercial airplane. And so I got the opportunity to go to France last year and to fly with the Breitling race team. And they open up the public like 5 or 6 days a year, which is pretty cool. And it happened to work out. And actually ended up having to be in like July 4th, which I thought was kind of a cool thing, independence, flying in a jet. And we ended up having to push it to July 5th, but it was scheduled for July 4th. So anyways, over that week. And so I'm out there and I'm super excited for this adventure. It's been something I've wanted to do for a long period of time, and everything kind of lined up for it. And so the Breitling race team, if you don't understand them, they go 600, 700, 800 miles an hour and perform acrobatic stunts in planes, like 2 or 3 feet apart, doing 600 miles an hour, doing flips and sideways. And so I remember, you know, when you get kind of suited, and well, first they bring you into this little fake chair in their office, and they kind of walk you through all the safety protocols. And the whole time they're like, you pull these red buttons, you're going to eject out of the seat. It's only happened once, so let's not have it happen again. I'm like, what? Like, I don't like, so like, they're like, keep your hands on your knees at all times. I'm like, okay. So anyways, I'm just super pumped. I'm in the seat. They're kind of working me through all this stuff. And I'm like, I got this. I don't have to touch this thing. And I'm like, I'm having this kind of this visualization of like Tom Cruise and like, you know, him and like just flying these jets around for everything that he's doing. And so I'm pumped. It's like 100 degrees out. We go out and we get in the cockpit. And the first thing that I realize is I'm too big to fit in a cockpit. Like these things are so tight. Tom Cruise makes it look so easy, and it makes it look big. I'm pretty sure they had it much larger. Anyways, the top was basically hitting the top of my helmet. I can't move. It's so hot in here. I'm already feeling claustrophobic. There's a GoPro sitting right on me. So it was, I had to do a lot of like quick little 3-2-1 relax meditation type things to kind of control my body to wanting to kick out. So we go up in the plane, right? And we're starting to drive in this thing. And it feels like a Ferrari versus like a car when you're on the ground versus like being in like a commercial jetliner. And you take off, you get up real quickly, like a couple 100 feet, and you're up. And once you're flying, it's not bad. I'm like, oh, this isn't bad at all. And you're kind of going straight. And before we kind of get in there, he was like, you know, how aggressive do you want me to be? I'm like, be as aggressive as you can. I got this, right? Like, this is gonna be fun. And he's like, all right, great. And so we kind of get up there, and he's chatting. I have a headphone set on, and he's talking to me. He's like, you doing okay? And he's like, all right, we're going to kind of explore some of this, you know, to make you feel it. And so he does this first turn, like the first bank, like you see a jet do. And I remember just feeling this G-force, and he's in a G-suit, which you can kind of see in his thing, which is I'm not. And he's in this G-suit. I'm like, wow, we get through the turn. He's like, how was that? I'm like, oh, it's pretty good. I'm like, man, was that like a 6G or something? He's like, that was like a half a G. And I'm like, oh, all right, well, it was pretty intense, but it was good. Side note, by the way, if you're going 1,000 miles an hour in a jet and you don't move up or sideways, you don't feel it. Just like that's why you're in a commercial jetliner going 400 miles an hour in a jet. You don't feel the impact of the plane. You just feel like you're just sitting in a plane drinking your water. It's not impacted. It's only when it moves, like sideways or upwards, that you actually feel the impact of that. So it's just kind of an interesting thing. So we're going. He's like, all right, you ready to do this? And I'm like, yep, we're ready to do this. And so again, I've had this visualization I was going to be able to nail this, that I was a Top Gun fighter, right, in Top Gun. And so I'm going down through this, and we're, make a long story short, we go down to go up. And as we start going up, like he's pulling like 5, 6, 7 Gs, and I have no thing on. We're traveling up for over a mile at this point, and all of a sudden I'm like, it gets really white and I just pass out. And like you can see on the GoPro, like my head just drops. And then he just turns the jet around and comes back down and allows the blood to kind of rush back up into you. And I come to, and I'm sick. I'm sweating profusely. He's like, how was that? And I tried to say something, but I couldn't. He's just laughing because he knows what he did and all this stuff. So we ended up like 15 minutes into this plane ride. I'm like, man, I want this guy to like turn around. I need to get out of this plane. But I kind of allowed myself to control and kind of push forward and ended up riding with this whole thing. And I ended up actually taking control of it, flipping it around. But man, I don't ever need to do that again. If that's on your bucket list, you should do it. I tell people, like, they ask me, if, like, would you do it again? I'm like, no, I won't. I don't need to have that experience again. I realize I'm not a jet fighter pilot, and I don't understand how these guys do it, but they're amazing at what they do. It was an awesome experience. So anyways, I'm having lunch with these guys afterwards. I get down, by the way, the photos, and my face is white. That's why I'm saying this was taken before. Like, my suit is completely soaked in sweat, and it was air conditioned in there. Anyways, it was a really rough go for me. But so I'm sitting and having lunch with two pilots afterwards, and they've been on the Breitling team for 15, 17 years or so. And I said, so what kind of computer systems do you guys use to, go 600-700 miles an hour and do some of these barrel rolls that you and I did up there? He's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, how do you not crash? Like, there's some pretty high consequences if you crash on these things. And he's like, no. He's like, it's really interesting. He's like, we don't have any computer systems at all. He's like, it's all done manually. I'm like, so you're telling me you have 6 planes out there, jets, doing barrel rolls and flips and traveling up and backwards and all this stuff, and you're doing them synchronized, and it's no computer system? I'm like, well, how does this work? He's like, well, it's very easy. He goes, there's a leader, and the leader is in front, and he's paying attention front. And everybody on the left side of the wing or the right side of the wing, whatever the plane is looking at the next person's in lines or the leader's wingtip. So he's like, I'm going 600 miles an hour, and my head is completely sideways, not looking forward, looking directly at my leader's wing. And he said, the minute that his wing goes to the right, mine goes to the right. So I'm literally, and then the guy that's left to me is looking at my wing, and my wing, his wing goes to the right. So everything is synchronized based on looking at where the leader is constantly going. If the leader makes a mistake, they all make a mistake. If the leader puts the team in jeopardy, he puts everybody in jeopardy because of his actions. And it was just, I remember just sitting there going, like, what a great lesson in leadership. Whereas in such high stakes, there's no computer system, it's done manually, and everybody is following the leader's lead, even when they don't realize it. He is so focused on where he's going that he knows he's got a group of people following him. And we all have people following us. We all are leading somebody. We're leading ourselves, we're leading our parents, we're leading our siblings, we're leading employees, we're leading clients. Everybody's always following your wing. So the pilot, the guy that's in front leading this, has to know where the vision is. He has to be able to provide instant clarity for the rest of the team to be able to perform. And it's years they work on this to be able to perfect it. But that's why when you go to a show and you see them doing this, they stay so synchronized. They're not talking to each other to say, okay, go right wing now. There's some communication going, but it's mainly just the visualization of where the leader goes. And there's not a clear story that paints this with higher odds than how important leadership is on understanding where you're going. And so as we start to look at the 3 essential things that a leader must do, the first thing is that you are always casting this vision. And the vision can be unpacked. I love unpacking big words because they can mean so many things. But vision can be just like we talked about here, that we're about to do a stunt. Vision can be, what's my vision for 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road of knowing where we're going. And then you can bring that back with even a short vision for the day or for the week if things get tough, or for the month, or for 90-day increments. And so when you're looking at this, how often are you casting your vision? Because the thing is, we leaders have this idea that people can just understand what they're thinking, right? I know any of you guys listening must have probably had that before, where you're going, well, I know exactly what my kids need to do. I don't know why they're not doing it. I know exactly what my employees should be doing. I don't know why they're not. Why did they act the way they do it? Well, you never shared what the vision was. And when you share it, you think that you're over communicating it. You're not communicating it enough. I promise you. Jack Welch, who built GE and kind of got into this, into the, bringing coaching into the business world, if you will, back in the 80s, talks about how you need to communicate the vision. I think originally he said every 15, 20 minutes, and he came back later on and said, you need to communicate every 7. And it's not like you're communicating your vision of my vision is this. It's not like you don't say those words. You're using language though, that's always directing people where to go and where the company is going, how it benefits them, the clarity that is needed to get there. Whether this is in a formal meeting, whether this is in a formal communication, whether this is in a, we as an organization try to make sure that we're sending communication out to all of our organizations at least monthly to everybody. Then I'm communicating, over-communicating to the people that are reporting directly to me as often, as frequently as you can about where the vision is going. But the first thing that we have to understand, that we have to ask ourselves is, do you know what your vision is? And if you do, can you succinctly and be able to explain it to a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old of what your vision is for your company, for your life, for where you're going? And if you're not, that's not a judgment. That's not, you shouldn't beat yourself up. That should be, that's the first place I'm going to start, is so that I can show and tell people where I'm going. People need to know where they're going. When you know where you're going, people move with speed, they move with clarity, they move with focus, and most importantly, it gives them the ability to say no to a whole bunch of other things if they know what to say yes to. You say no to say yes. And you say no to everything else, so you can say yes to your vision. So you can say yes to where you're going. It's these separational things that bring organizations to the next level. And again, I talked about unpacking the word leadership. At each different change in your thinking patterns in leadership, this will become clearer and clearer and clearer along your path. And as that becomes clearer and clearer, this will start to make even more sense, and you get even more clear about all of this. And that's why Jack Welch, even after he was done, he's like, it made me even more clear after I got out of this and started realizing I should have communicated even more. That's why he's still writing about it, into his late ages now. So do you know where you're going? Do you know what the vision is? Are you communicating it enough, right? And the vision can be, a financial goal. It can be a wellness goal. It can be a lot of different things for different aspects of your life. And you naturally may do better at different things, but understanding where you're going first is really important, so that people can't follow you if you don't know where you're going, right? Like, it's just, you don't know where you're going, right? You need to know where you're going. So most importantly, you need to understand the vision first. Number 2, focus, clarity, and direction for the team. This goes back to the Google Maps kind of analogy. If you land in an airport, think about how easier it is and less stressful it is when you show up at an airport not trying to figure out with an old fold-up map of where you're going. You type in first of all, you start typing in like the first 3 letters of where you're going, and it automatically populates. And then it gives you the ETA. It gives you 4 different options for it. It tells you where heavy traffic is. It tells you how quickly you're going to get there. It gives you alternative routes, which is removing roadblocks if there's traffic jams. I mean, it's unbelievable with the clarity, because then you get in with confidence to start taking action. What I've noticed in most organizations, it's not that people aren't willing to do work, and that's a different conversation. They just lack direction and clarity. And so if you're running a bigger organization, or especially if you have the right people, there's never going to be a time where people don't have something to do. There's never it's like people strive for this. And the first thing I try to tell people is remove that thinking. Because you may get once a month or once a quarter this time where you've got your inbox down to a certain level, or you've got the to-do list or checklist off your box, and you feel great, only to wake up to start it all over again. And then you just start working for the next 6 months to get back to where you were, instead of just embracing the fact that business building is messy, right? Being a leader is messy, but it's understanding that there's 4 really important things to do. But now you get to decide which one gets to focus on now, which is why in a lot of our organizations, we use tools like 1-3-5s or the 12-week kind of year, which is in 12 weeks, we want to be here, and the whole team rallies around that. Each team member has a different thing, and we check in and make sure they're focused on those items to move the organization forward. The only way you're going to be moving your entire company forward is if everybody's rowing in the same direction. If somebody's rowing backwards, somebody's rowing sideways, somebody's rowing forward, you're going to spin. And then you're just going to be subject to the laws of the economy. If it's going well, great. If it's not going well, you're not doing well. You want to buck that trend, which is providing the clarity and the direction to your team. You cannot express this enough. When the company is not reaching their desired goals or results that you've set out there to get focused on, the most important thing that I always go back to is the vision there. And usually it is, and that's not usually the number 1, but if it may be for other people, I'm just talking about my experiences. For me, it's usually number 2, which is I didn't provide enough clarity, i.e. I didn't give people permission in my team to say no to enough, to really identify what matters the most. And then if there's still a problem with still too much going on, and then it goes, who do you need to hire? or what roadblocks do we need to remove to get you over to the next level? And that becomes the goal of what you're doing as a leader. That's the vision. So understand there's things that go into unpacking this. What is your vision? Make sure you know where that is. If you don't, start there, write it out, test it out, say it out. Then as you're casting the vision, again, long-term visions are great. It's a 5-year goal. This is where we're going. It gets people excited. You get to attract them into your organization. But then there's the practical application of what's the vision for the month, right? And you could argue that's clarity and direction towards the larger vision, which it is. But the first thing you need to do is understand how that monthly vision ties into your 5-year vision, and you tie them together. As you're tying them together, it just makes it more chunked down so you can actually accomplish these things. And then you want to look for, as I started saying before, you want to look at how do I remove roadblocks before anybody on my team even understands the roadblocks, which the first thing that's probably going to happen is they get too much on their plate. So then you got to say, out of these 10 things you're doing, you get to pick 5, right? Or together we're going to pick 5. And as you work through those, it gives people permission to push other things aside and realize that you're never going to accomplish everything that's throughout your day. You're just not. What you're going to accomplish is the things that matter the most for your organization or for yourself if you're a solopreneur right now. And what action steps you have to take. It may not be the thing that's screaming at you, but it's the thing that you need to move forward the most. Okay. Here's an example, by the way. This was March 12th, just to give you an example of what, this is obviously right when COVID was first hitting. This is an email that I sent to one of our organizations, Hergenrother Realty Group. You can take a picture of it, you can read it. I'm not gonna read the whole thing for time's sake, but we'll send it to you if you want it. But it really just highlights what's going on, the reality, where we're going, what we're doing, and here are immediate action steps. See the back? Immediate action steps at the bottom, immediate action steps you can take. 1, 2, 3, boom. Very clear, very precise, being able to push through, and we survived and thrived over the last couple of months. And I think a lot has to do with our entire leadership being prepared to be able to communicate our vision and clarity in real time. And this is part of it because they can take this and they can build off this and share with their team as well too, or different posts of it. But it's very prescriptive. It lays it out, where we're going, what we're doing, and here are immediate action steps to start removing roadblocks and things that could show up. So again, we'll give it to you if you need to, but this is an example of an email that goes out. And again, as I mentioned with emails, I like to send at least about one every month to all of my organizations for everybody. And again, if you have a smaller team, you may be doing this weekly. So you kind of find your rhythm for how you constantly communicate this. Now, I said before, you communicate it a lot. Doesn't mean that in my world, our leaders should be communicating that on a daily basis, and I should be communicating that to them on a daily basis. But then overarching, just to keep setting the vision or where we're going and reminding people, that happens about once a month. There's just that kind of rhythm for that. Self-leadership is always going to precede leadership. There's no other way around this. You can't lead somebody unless you're leading yourself. And if you're leading them from a false sense or a fake sense without leading yourself first. And that at some point will show up. You see this with famous people. You see people that you know and you don't know. It'll automatically be unauthentic. So you have to create a self-leadership program first. And self-leadership will always precede leadership. Once you understand that, you start making the day about you growing so that you can change your thinking patterns, which will then ultimately change how everybody else starts to think as well too. So great leaders are thoughtful and deliberate, not impulsive and reactive. One of the things that I see a lot with leaders in leadership, especially with different levels of it, people look at the results of something that day instead of a longer term build on it, meaning that when a great leader is very thoughtful and deliberate in their approach to things, they see it longer term, they see the impact that is happening now. They're not looking for the immediate gratification. They're looking for the long-term component. Are we building towards that? If you're looking for the immediate gratification, you may not get it right away, and you may be forced to take action that isn't necessary. So you're very thoughtful in where your approach is. You're thinking it through, and you're very deliberate in your communication style, the words that you use, and you're not just something happens and you blow up and you impulse and you react. That is just like a jackhammer coming in there and just hitting people, right? Don't ever be impulsive and reactive. People feel that. If you are finding yourself that you're more reactive, take a sacred pause. Somebody comes in, you boom, and you feel like you're going to react, just count to 3. Then maybe wait 24 hours before you respond. Start putting things into play so you start working on yourself to be more thoughtful and more deliberate if you happen to fall in the category of being very impulsive when things don't go your way. Understand at the core of this, life is not supposed to go the way you want it to. That's not the point. Everybody wants life to be different, right? Maybe your group of friends wants to be the same way, but you take the billions of people in this world, they all want something different. That's why there's wars. So life itself can't unfold just the way you want it. It's never going to. It's going to unfold. It's going to give you a set of cards. Play with them. The people who win in poker in Vegas aren't people who get full houses. They're the ones who can play the cards the best. That's what leaders do. You play the card the best based on where it is and the set of circumstances that you have. And again, this kind of goes, great leaders have the courage to have the conversations that no one else will. It's raising the level of intensity. It's raising the words that you use to elicit a little bit more. It's knowing that you should say something in a very respectful way and you do it. Everybody who's listening to this right now, live or recorded, will understand that there's somebody that you should be having a conversation with, that you know you should be having a conversation with to free up, whether it's personal or in business, that's going to free up some cognitive space so you can move past it. But they have the courage to say this by letting go of the outcome. You create the best environment that you can, and then you build the best roster to take advantage of this, and then you let go of the result. And it's much more fun journey that way. So have the courage to have the conversations that no one else will. And ultimately, great leaders ask great questions and hold their teams accountable to the results. Great leaders ask great questions and hold their team accountable to the results. Now, when you're asking great questions, you get people to self-discover. Questions leads to more clarity. The more clarity that you have, the more roadblocks that everyone can remove. So you can see how this goes in line with the first 3 things that we need to do. And they hold their team accountable to the results. You're holding the result accountable. The result becomes the bad guy, not the person. And that's what you hold on to them. You focus on there, so asking questions, you get clear on the result, and then you hold the team members accountable to the result that everyone has agreed upon of what you're focusing to. Instead of being impulsive or reactive, again, you ask a lot of questions and hold the team accountable. The next time you're in a situation, ask a question. Ask a question. Get more clarity on it first. Triangulate. We have a whole conversation of triangulation, but not today. Leadership questions, right? What is your natural leadership style? What is working based on this style? What isn't working, right? What kind of leader do you want to be? What questions are people asking you? The reason why I put this in here is so you to have some knowledge about understanding how you're leading. Because you probably have a perception of how you're leading. You should ask some people. You should look into this. Do some thoughtful deliberation on how you're leading. What's working, what's not. Because if the results aren't being there, it's mostly probably about how you're communicating and how you're leading. It's what communication is all about, leadership, right? So what do you need to change? What activity do you need to change? What do you need to be willing to adjust in you that may feel different? Because changes in behavior feel different, right? They feel awkward. They feel unnatural. But that's how you break through the ceiling that you're at and create a different level of thinking, which creates a different level of action, which creates a different level of results. It's not time. It's not the books that you read. It's your ability to work on yourself that's going to make the biggest impact on the entire team. Because working on yourself creates a vacuum for everybody else to follow. And that's ultimately important. So understand your own leadership questions that you're doing. And finally, I think one of the most important messages that we can get out there right now, and probably why you're listening to this if you're following our material, is that the next generation of leaders are just as committed to their inner world and their inner growth as they are their spiritual life, as they are to bottom lines and spreadsheets. Say another way, right? You're just committed to your inner growth as much as you are to spreadsheets, bottom lines, strategic decisions. These are leaders. They understand behavior. They understand people. They understand how themselves tick. They understand what leaders they are. They understand how they lead. Then they hire people to help facilitate where their inadequacies are on this so they can stay in. They're not afraid to mention that. man, it's such an important thing, is you have to go inward so you can go outward and upward. And it's like you have to pull the bow back first in order for the arrow to get any speed and momentum. So that's what you really need to focus on. And again, we'd love to give you a free business coaching strategy session, all about our holistic approach to business coaching. We have a very unique model, one that's been working with us. And we'd love to give you out there. So if you want a free, no strings attached, just business consultation, adamhergenrother.com/call. And Carrie will jump on with this. We'd love to have a conversation with you guys and help you through any of the leadership challenge that you're going through. Because sometimes you need to walk through them. You need to have a coach point out where some of your leadership challenges are. And that's what a coach is supposed to do. They don't have the answers. What they do have is an ability to walk you through and get you to self-discover your next opportunity for growth. And so hopefully you take us up on this. We'd love to connect with you. You guys are awesome. Thanks for jumping on me for 30 minutes. I'm going to respect your time. You guys are awesome. Have a wonderful day.